When it comes to changing the climate of the actual surface of your bed, there are a lot of options out there, and I've researched many of them and I've tried several of them. And I wanted to compare the 8 Sleep against the Perfectly Snug. Now, these are two popular options for mattress toppers / mattress covers that will physically change the surface temperature of your bed. They do it in different ways and to different degrees of effectiveness, but they are comparable in the sense that when you need to make your bed cooler or warmer, they both do that, but they're not created equally. The 8 Sleep, you'll often hear this referred to as the pod, and it is a complete system that includes a pod, which is the mattress cover that actually, goes over the entire mattress, sides and all. And it has a separate unit that sort of sits off to the side, and it almost looks like a desktop computer in a way, and that controls the whole thing. And the surface of the pod cover, there are water channels throughout. And you don't feel them, you don't feel water rushing through them, but the temperature of the water that flows through them is what controls the temperature of the surface of the mattress. And this is something that is a really good option when you want something that isn't going to change the way that your bed physically feels, because the pod cover's very thin. It's not thin enough that you'll feel anything happening inside of it as far as water movement or even the channels themselves, but it's thin enough that it won't alter how soft or firm your mattress is. The Perfectly Snug works similarly to the 8 Sleep, at least as far as controlling the surface temperature of the mattress. Instead of using water, however, the Perfectly Snug uses air that gets forced through the entire mattress pad that sits on top of the bed. The major difference is the pad itself, because it's a couple inches thick. So this is something that when you put that on your mattress, it is going to change the way that your mattress physically feels when you're laying on it. And using air, the air is going to flow through underneath it. It's not necessarily going to be as effective as the water channels in the 8 Sleep, but it allows for a wide variety of temperature ranges, whether you need it colder or warmer, the same way that 8 Sleep does. So they are comparable in that way. They just get it done in very different ways. I have the 8 Sleep pod on my bed. I have a queen size memory foam mattress, and I've been sleeping with the pod for a few months now, and I love it. So I realize I'm probably a little bit biased to a degree, but I love the surface of my memory foam, and I didn't want my climate control system to change that. So for me, the 8 Sleep was by far the top choice when I was looking at all of my options. Now, the 8 Sleep, it isn't the most perfect system, especially if you only need the most basic temperature control, because the Perfectly Snug will automatically adjust the temperature based on your settings, but that isn't done through any sort of automation the way that 8 Sleeps does, and I'll explain why, because it's a little weird to explain. But 8 Sleep runs on this thing called Autopilot, and it's the name of the app, and it's the system that automates everything overnight while you're sleeping. So when you get that set up, you give it your preferences, you explain kind of what you're using it for, and it'll help you decide what temperature you need to set it at when you're first starting it. But then night after night, it is monitoring you while you sleep. So it's making smart adjustments based on where you're at in your sleep cycle. How your actual temperature of your body, as well as the ambient temperature in the room. And it factors all of this biometric data as you're sleeping throughout the night. You're never aware of it until morning, and it adjusts all by itself all throughout the night. And the goal there is to help you get the longest, best sleep possible for the entire duration of your sleep overnight. The next day, you will actually get a sleep grade that tells you, like it's an actual sleep score. You get graded on your sleep night after night. But the data is really interesting because it not only tells you how well you slept, but it gives you a lot of insight into your breath rate, your heart rate, the different sleep cycles that you were in all throughout the night and how long you were in them. And there's just a lot of data involved, including how much you were snoring, which I didn't really love that data. But I like to think I don't snore, and clearly I do, so that was a little bit of a wake-up call. But my point is that the data that comes with the 8 sleep is really, really useful. And night after night, as you're sleeping on autopilot, it gets to know you better, so it gets even better over time. Now, that does require a subscription, which the Perfectly Snug does not have. So when you're sleeping on the Perfectly Snug, there are sensors inside the mattress that will automatically adjust the airflow and temperature based on whatever the sensors are picking up from your body laying on the mattress topper. So it does do some adjusting on its own overnight, but it really doesn't provide you with any insight the way that the 8 sleep does. And in my experience, manual controls are not terrible. Once in a while I'll actually adjust my 8 sleep manually, like if I'm having a really difficult night with hot flashes and -2 or 3 just isn't getting it done and I need to lower that temperature for myself, I can do that manually. And Perfectly Snug works manually. It's just like a button that's on the side that you hit to turn it on and adjust the temperature. So both of them offer that, but in my experience, the 8 sleep just gives you a lot more. Now, the 8 sleep does control the temperature of the mattress surface using water. And I'll admit that was a little bit of a concern of mine because I have a memory foam mattress. So I just envisioned my mattress sort of being like a sponge. So if the pod ever were to leak, my mattress would just soak up all the water and be ruined. So I get the concern with that. That is the one benefit to Perfectly Snug. It uses air, and air really can't leak the same way that water can. But it's also not as effective as the water. Air is fine and good, and it will work for some, but when you really need a lot more temperature control, and especially under your body, no matter how it's pressing into the surface, the water channels inside the 8 sleep, those are what are going to get it done. So as a workaround and just like as a preventative measure, I put a waterproof cover over my mattress before I put the pod cover on it. So my mattress still feels like it did, but I have that sort of waterproof layer between the pod cover and my mattress. So just if anything should happen, I'm not expecting it to. Everything's been working just fine, but years down the road, wear and tear, things happen. Better safe than sorry as far as I'm concerned. So, if that's a concern of yours, I get it. Just get a waterproof mattress cover and you're good to go. The pros of the 8 sleep pod, of course, are the automation and all of the sleep data that you get night after night. It's really, really useful. And I don't consider myself much of a data nerd, but even I'm sort of interested in like how I slept the night before. It's not that I like being graded on things, but getting that sleep grade every morning, it's just an insight to how well I slept and how I'm feeling day after day. We tend to not really think about how much the quality of our sleep affects the quality of our daily life. So that insight from the 8 Sleep is really, really useful. Another major pro is, of course, the fact that you put that on your mattress and you don't feel it under you. So if you're like me and you love the way that your mattress feels as it is, the 8 Sleep Pod doesn't change that. I don't feel it underneath me, and I'm somebody who is very sensitive to tactile things, just in my day-to-day life and while I'm sleeping, and I don't notice any sort of difference. So that's a huge pro, at least in my opinion. That might not matter to everybody, but definitely matters to me. Another major pro of the 8 Sleep is the fact that it has dual zone control built right in. So if you're sleeping with somebody else on the other side of the bed, you can each set your side however you want it. So if you want your side of the bed cooler, your partner wants theirs warmer, it can be adjusted and everybody is content. And if you sleep in bed alone, of course, you can just have the whole bed set however you want to, because it's your bed. You can do what you want. So although the majority of the control of the 8 Sleep is done through the app, and that's accessed on your phone, you can actually manually control the temperature up or down. Along the side of the bed, like either side of the mattress, there's a pad. It's about yay big. I mean, you can't miss it. It's like right on the side. You just sort of, tap it a couple of times, and you can adjust the temperature one level at a time. So you don't necessarily have to reach for your phone and fiddle, especially if it's in the middle of the night. You just want to adjust it, and you don't want to wake yourself all the way up by looking at a bright phone. You can just tap the side of the bed and alter the temperature. As amazing as the 8 Sleep is, there are a couple of cons that are worth mentioning, and in my opinion, the biggest con is that Wi-Fi connection is necessary. And that kind of makes sense when you consider that you're going to be controlling it with your phone, and even if you're not using it on autopilot, if you're only using it manually, you still need to have Wi-Fi connectivity. And I didn't really stop to think about this until one summer night when it was very, very hot, and it was a dark and stormy night because my internet went out and I didn't have Wi-Fi. So I didn't think anything of it until I went to bed, and I couldn't turn my pod on because it couldn't connect. And it was hot, and I really, really wanted a cool bed, and I was trying to think like what in the heck I could do. I have no internet. I am very intelligent every once in a while, and as it turns out, you can actually tether to your phone in a pinch. So like if your phone has a hotspot, you can actually use that and connect your pod to it in a pinch. Just a handy little FYI if you're ever in a situation like that, because that really sucked, but at least there was a workaround. And that is the one thing that I kind of wish that the pod could at least work when there is no Wi-Fi connectivity. Like, things happen, storms happen, internet goes out, and having some sort of a workaround I think would be really helpful, just for those instances where you just don't have any internet to connect to. The other big con with the 8 Sleep is, of course, the price point. This is not an inexpensive piece of sleep tech. That said, a good night of sleep is worth the investment, in my opinion, but it's still a chunk of change. Now, there are some options. There are payment plans through a firm. If you have FSA or HSA available, you can put that toward the purchase of an 8 Sleep. And they also have a month-to-month rental plan. So there are options, and especially if you're not 100% sure that the 8 Sleep is right for you, renting it for a month or two, just long enough to try it, see if it actually works for you. That's a good way to give it a whirl before you actually go all in on a purchase. The one benefit to renting is that the warranty is always current and the Autopilot subscription is included. So that's all bundled together with your rental every month, and Over time, as new pods arise, you can opt to upgrade and, do whatever you want to do as time goes on. The 8 Sleep does take a little while to set up. I don't really consider it much of a con. It's probably just like a minor con. Like on a scale from 1 to 10, it's like a 2. But it is a little bit of a process in terms of time. In my experience, mine took me, it was about 50 minutes all in from start to finish, and that included the unboxing and getting everything set up and connecting to my internet and priming the stuff and doing this, that, and the other thing. But the instructions walk you through all of that step by step. So even though it is a little bit of a process, it's pretty simple. The Perfectly Snug does have some pros to consider. One being the price point. It is considerably less expensive compared to an 8 Sleep. So when your budget is a huge thing to consider, as it is for many of us, the Perfectly Snug is definitely an option to consider. At least currently for like a queen size, if you're looking for a dual zone, it's about $1,900. And that's considerably less. Another benefit to the Perfectly Snug is the setup. It's really, really simple because you're not priming anything with water. You're not having to pair it with an app and your Wi-Fi and this, that, and the other thing. The setup is considerably simpler with the Perfectly Snug. Simply unbox it, put it on your bed, plug it in, and you're basically ready to go. Everything can be controlled through buttons that are on the side of the unit, so there's really not a whole lot to do when you're setting this up on your bed for the first time. You can, of course, opt to use the app if you want to. They have one available, and there is no subscription associated with it the way that you have with the 8 Sleep. So the Perfectly Snug is user-friendly option when simplicity is the most important thing. Like the 8 Sleep, the Perfectly Snug also offers dual zone control if you want that, which means each side of the bed has its own separate control, so you can alter the temperature however you want. The biggest con of the Perfectly Snug is the thickness. Now, where the 8 Sleep is pretty thin, doesn't alter the way that your mattress feels, the Perfectly Snug mattress topper is a couple inches thick. So it is going to change the way that your mattress actually feels to some degree. Now, that might be exactly what you're looking for, and it might not be, but it's definitely something that's important to consider, because if you love the way that your existing mattress feels right now, the Perfectly Snug is gonna change that. Being the far simpler system, the Perfectly Snug does not give you all of the sleep data that the 8 Sleep does. So if that is something that is important to you, especially if you want to monitor how you're sleeping night after night, if you want to look at your heart rate, your breath rate, you want more insight into what your body is physically doing while you're sleeping, the Perfectly Snug offers none of that. Finally, the Smart Topper comes with a 1-year warranty, and you can shop extended warranties so you have a longer period of time. The 8 Sleep starts with 2 years and goes up to 5. While both climate control systems are effective in their own way, in my experience, the 8 Sleep is by far the superior choice for a lot of reasons, namely the fact that you don't feel it underneath you. It doesn't change the way that your mattress feels. The setup, even though it does take some time to set this up, in my experience it was about 45-50 minutes, it takes you through that process literally step by step on the app. So it's not like you're reading a manual and getting lost along the way, and things are not confusing. It's very, very simple. You just follow the instructions, and before you know it, you're done. But the sleep tracking, the automation night after night, and the fact that it offers so much as far as automating your sleep and reporting back to you to let you know how you're sleeping, and that helps you to monitor not just your sleep but your overall health. It's a really innovative piece of equipment that I didn't really know that I needed as much as I did until I started using it. I know that shopping for climate control systems for your bed can be really overwhelming because there are so many products out there. And hopefully this video has helped you make a decision, or at least shed some insight if you're considering the 8 Sleep Pod and the Perfectly Snug. In my experience, the 8 Sleep Pod just delivers the better night of sleep. At this point, they're going to have to pry it from my cold dead hands because I just can't imagine sleeping without it. But every situation is different. So as you're shopping for yourself, look at the specifications and consider what you need.